Hi everybody, today's class is going to be Juxta glomerular apparatus and its role in physiological mechanisms. We will look into the impact of ACEIs and ARRBS. What is Juxta glomerular apparatus? Okay, first we will know what is the structure of your glomerulus. What is the structure of a glomerulus? You have the Bowman's capsule, and inside it what we have is the capillaries, isn't it? So you have an afferent capillary, and an efferent capillary, bringing blood into the Bowman's capsule and taking blood out of the Bowman's capsule. And here in the glomerulus what we have is the filtrate, which is passing into the tubules, renal tubules, and they form your urine. So what is Juxta glomerular apparatus? So this renal tubule has a connection with the head of the nephron, and this is called as Juxta glomerular apparatus. The structures which constitutes this afferent and efferent arterioles and the glomerulus, as well as the distal convoluted tubule, this constitutes your Juxta glomerular apparatus. So what is Juxta glomerular apparatus? It is a name indicates, as the name indicates, it is a juxta, which means near, refers to a collection of specialized cells located very near to the glomerulus. By now you know it consists of the cells which are present in your afferent arteriole and the cells which are present in the macula densa. So the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle in contact with the glomerulus of the same renal capsule, the structures are modified, and this it is present in the tubules and in the afferent and the efferent arterioles. This entire modified structure, that is tubular and vascular components and the cells between them, is called a Juxta glomerular apparatus. So here you can see, as I already told you, the glomerulus, okay, and you have the afferent and the efferent arterioles coming into the glomerulus. And this efferent arterioles and cells, specialized cells of the efferent arterioles, and the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle, which is the cells are called as macula densa, and the glomerular cells. In between them you have some cells, and these are called as extraglomerular interstitial cells. These constitutes your Juxta glomerular apparatus. Why is it important? What is the importance of Juxta glomerular apparatus? We will look into it now. Okay, before that, what are the cells? So there are three types of cells, Juxta glomerular cells, which are modified smooth muscle cells of the afferent arteriole, macula densa cells, which are present, which are the cells of the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle, and you have the mesangial cells, which are classic cells, and these are the cells which are present outside the glomerulus, and they are called as extraglomerular mesangial cells. So Juxta glomerular cells, these are also called as Pulchisson cells. They are specialized myoepithelial modified vascular smooth muscle cells. They are the cells located in the tunica media of the afferent arteriole in the region of the Juxta glomerular apparatus. Few are present in the efferent arteriole too. So you can see here the afferent arteriole, which is bringing blood to the glomerulus. The cells are specialized, and these are called as Juxta glomerular cells. Some cells are also present in the efferent arteriole too. So what is the importance? They are densely innervated by the sympathetic nerve fibers. The importance is they release renin. Have you heard of the renin? Renin is very, very important because that is the important hormone which modulates your extracellular volume and your blood pressure. And these cells release renin in response to your sympathetic discharge. Important parameter is this. So now what is the characteristics of Juxta glomerular apparatus? Approximately 100 to 200 micrometers upstream from the transition to the distal convoluted tubule, these cells are present. They are modified cells. They have granular epithelioid appearance. They are epithelioid in nature. Renin is stored in the secretory granules, hence they are also called as granular cells. They have secretory granules, zymogen granules. They have rounded nuclei, high nucleus to cytoplasmic ratio is there, well-developed Golgi apparatus, rough endoplasmic reticulum is present, abundant mitochondria is there, and they are not typically in contact with the basal membrane. Ribosomes are also there. Absence of basal enfoldings is a finding here. The basement membrane is thinner and discontinuities are present here. So, but the macromolecular composition differs. So what is the function of juxtaglomerular apparatus? You know they have the granules which secrete, zymogen granules are there which secrete renin in response to the sympathetic discharge. They are highly innervated by your sympathetic nervous system. So what should be the function? As I told you already, they regulate your extracellular volume, that is ECF volume, as well as the blood volume, as well as your blood pressure. So what could be the stimulus? So whenever there is a decrease in the BP or decrease in the volume in the extracellular compartment, then this is the stimulus for the information to go to the kidney to stimulate your renin secretion. So this is stimulated by hypovolemia, a decrease in the renal perfusion pressure, and because the renal perfusion pressure goes down because of the hypotension. So in response to this, they secrete an enzyme called renin. They act as baroreceptors. They function they sense the decrease in the blood pressure. They are tension receptors, as well as they sense the volume depletion in your extracellular fluid. So they function as a baroreceptor and a volume receptor. So this forms a major component of renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, or the RAAS mechanism. So here you can see the afferent arteriole is having specialized cells called, what are the cells? Juxtaglomerular cells. They are also called as granular cells because they have a lot of granules which has renin. So this renin is secreted in response to hypovolemia or hypotension, and this causes a stimulation of these cells through the sympathetic nerves. That is one mechanism, one of the mechanisms. So second structure which constitutes your juxtaglomerular apparatus is macula densa cells. They are specialized renal tubular epithelial cells of the short segment of the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle, which passes between the afferent and the efferent arterioles, supplying the glomerulus of its origin. So the nephron, so if here is your nephron, okay, this is the glomerulus, this is the nephron, the whole limb, okay. So the thick ascending limb, okay, the thin ascending limb is there, thin descending limb is there, thin ascending limb is there, thick ascending limb. When it comes out, it is having a contact with your head of the glomerulus, and then it forms your collecting tubules. So of the same origin, one particular nephron head, it has a connection with a particular thick ascending limb of loop of Henle. So when it is in connection with that, these short segment which is in connection with your glomerulus is modified, and these are called as macula densa cells. So what is the characteristics of the macula densa cells? They are the dense plaque in a unique group of 15 to 20 cells. Granular cells are clustered at the vascular pole over the length of 30 micrometers, or about 20% of the efferent arteriole. They form single ring-like renin positive regions in more proximal locations, and this is also sometimes seen. So what are the characteristic features? Not well developed for reabsorption, not innervated, directly in contact with the mesangial cells, which are the interstitial cells which are present in your nephron. So they are in close contact with the juxtaglomerular cells. So now we are talking about the thick ascending limb, which has the cells which are thick ascending limb is for your reabsorption, isn't it? But this is not for the reabsorption. It is not innervated, and this is in direct contact with your juxtaglomerular cells of your afferent arteriole as well as efferent arteriole, and this gives information to your efferent arteriole. So what is that? We will look into it. So before that, they have apical nuclei, basal conical complexes are there, and endoplasmic reticulum is there. Great number of ion channels and transporters are present here. So what are the functions of the macula densa? As I told you already, it functions, gives information to your juxtaglomerular cells. So what information it gives? It acts as a chemoreceptors, find out what is happening in the filtrate when it is passing through it. So it functions as a chemoreceptors, finds out the ionic composition, and tells juxtaglomerular cells that it should be altered. So it gives a feedback signal to the renal capsule renal capsule. So show granulations to secrete renin in conditions of extreme hyperactivity too. So not only chemoreceptors and sending feedback signals, sometimes it shows the renin to secretes renin too. It also secretes various other substances like ATP, adenosine and other vasoactive substances which are very important in transmitting the signals from the macula densa to the juxtaglomerular cells. So they also take up immune complexes. So now we are coming to the third important component of juxtaglomerular cells. They are extraglomerular mesangial cells or Lasik cells or Gourmatic cells. So what are they? So here in this picture you can see the afferent arteriole, efferent arteriole, the macula densa. In between them what we have is the interstitial cells. So these cells here which are present outside the glomerulus are called as mesangial cells, extraglomerular mesangial cells or Lasik cells or Gourmatic cells. So the interstitial cells of the juxtaglomerular apparatus present in the triangular space formed by the afferent and the efferent arterioles and the macula densa at the vascular pole. So what are the characteristic features? They are called as extraglomerular mesangial cells present outside the glomerulus, mainly located between the afferent and the efferent arteriole. They are in contact with both macula densa and the juxtaglomerular cells. So here you can see these are the cells. So here you can see the macula densa is in contact with your juxtaglomerular cells, but this mesangial cells are in contact with the macula densa as well as your juxtaglomerular cells. So they are present in the interstitial cleft with there is an interstitial cleft of variable width that does not appear to be bridged by the gap junction connections. There is an interstitial cleft. This cell field is free of capillaries, lymph terminals or nerve fibers. They are agranular cells. They are elongated cells with long cytoplasmic processes. So what is the function of these Lasik cells? What is the function of interstitial cells? To secrete renin, which is very important to regulate your blood volume and your PP. What is the function of macula densa? To sense the chemical composition in the filtrate so that it can judge whether the flow is more or less. So it detects your hypotension or your low volume in your extracellular compartment. So what is the function of this extracellular mesangial cells or your Lasik cells? So they will relay this information, that is the chemoreceptor information, to the juxtaglomerular cells to secrete your renin. So they function as a relay station for the signals to be transmitted from your macula densa to the granular cells after modulating the signals. In this way, a decreased intramural sodium load or chloride role or both in the region of macula densa can be found out. This stimulates the juxtaglomerular cells to secrete renin. So these Lasik cells also secrete some quantity of renin as well as erythropoietin. As other functions of the mesangial cells, they give physical support. They are contractile in nature. They also process phagocytic activity and defensive in function. So all of the functions of mesangial cells are also taken up by these Lasik cells. So mesangial cells, a word about the mesangial cells. So they are the interstitial cells present in the glomerulus. They have the physical support of the capillaries within the glomerulus. Contractions occur in response to the blood pressure changes. Phagocytosis of protein aggregates adherent to the filtrate occur here. They secrete a lot of cytokines, prostaglandins, other factors important for immune defense and repair the glomerulus. So what are the functions of this juxtaglomerular apparatus? So they are so interconnected, but we will learn them under these following headings. Erythropoiesis I am not going to touch in detail here, just we will know that it has a role in the erythropoiesis because it secretes erythropoietin. Okay, so what are the functions? Tumuloglomerular feedback mechanism, which will regulate the control of glomerular filtration. 2 is renin-angiotensin system, regulation of blood volume and pressure. And 3 is it has a role in erythropoiesis because it secretes erythropoietin. So first one is auto-regulation of renal blood flow and GFR. GFR is a glomerular filtration rate. So auto-regulation of RBF and GFR. So the two mechanisms are there. One is myogenic autoregulation and another one is tubulo-glomerular feedback mechanism. So what is autoregulation of the renal blood flow and GFR? Renal blood flow and GFR remains nearly constant even in the presence of large changes in the mean systemic arterial pressure. Maintenance of this constant flow in spite of pressure changes is called autoregulation. So here you can see in this diagram, this is renal blood flow, okay. This is glomerular filtrate, okay. This is glomerular filtrate. So as the renal blood flow increases, the filtrate increases, okay. But there is a constant renal glomerular filtration is maintained here, even when there is an alteration in your blood flow. So this is called as autoregulation. So even if the blood flow increases or decreases, there is a constant filtrate formed in your glomerulus. This is very important for the normal urine output. This is called as autoregulation of renal blood flow. So first we will look into the myogenic autoregulation. Maybe this can be dealt in detail when we talk about the Juxta glomerular apparatus, glomerular filtrate mechanisms, but I want to put a word here too. So myogenic autoregulation, what is it? There is a constant filtrate formed in spite of alterations in your BP because of a myogenic mechanism. This we can put it like that. So what is it? So when there is an increase in the pressure, you can see here, when there is an increase in the pressure, afferent arterioles stretch. Inflow of extracellular calcium ions occurred in the smooth muscle cells. There is calcium calmodulin and activation of myosin cross bridges, and it causes contraction response of the smooth muscles of the arteriolar media. So this causes a reduction in the caliber or the diameter of the arteriole, and this increases the resistance to the blood flow so that it maintains your constant renal blood flow and GFR. So what happens? Whenever there is an increase in the BP, there is increased stretch on the vessels. This causes influx of calcium. By calcium calmodulin mechanism, there is smooth muscle contraction. So what happens is, it causes stretching of the muscles and contractions so that the caliber decreases, so that the blood flow decreases. This pressure sensitive mechanism may be of more importance in hypotension induced injury than normally. So GFR regulation, this intrinsic mechanism is a myogenic mechanism. You can see here, when the flow is increased or the BP is increased, it causes a stretch on the arterial walls of your smooth muscles, and this causes contraction of the smooth muscles so that the flow into the glomerulus is decreased and the filtrate remains constant. So this is myogenic mechanism of autoregulation of your GFR. Next one, which we want to concentrate in this session, is tubulo-glomerular feedback mechanism, where the Juxta glomerular apparatus comes into play, because our class today is Juxta glomerular apparatus. For the sake of understanding the myogenic, I have included that myogenic also here. So tubulo-glomerular feedback mechanism, one is scenario 1. So whenever there is a GFR decreases, okay, increases, for example, there is increase in the flow, there is increase in GFR. So now what happens, there is increase in sodium chloride concentration in the Juxta glomerular apparatus. Why is it so? So whenever the flow is more, you have your proximal convoluted tubule here. So the flow is more here, it goes just like that, fast. So what happens, there is no time for reabsorption of sodium chloride in the proximal convoluted tubule, and hence the concentration of sodium chloride in the Juxta glomerular apparatus is more, because in the thick ascending limb there is more sodium chloride. This is sensed by your macula densa, that is cells of your thick ascending limb of loop of Henle. So here you can see the flow is more. In the PCT there is absorption, usually there is sodium chloride absorption, 99% of the ions and the organic substances get absorbed in your PCT, that we know, isn't it? So now what happens is, when the flow is more, this absorption is not occurring, there is decrease in the time for the absorption, and hence the lot of these ions passes through the thin limb, okay, passes through the thick limb, and it comes to the macula densa. Here in the macula densa, it senses, oh, lot of sodium chloride is there, particularly not just sodium, it is most important is the chloride. So lot of sodium chloride is there, and this information is sensed by this macula densa, which is the chemoreceptor. What it should do, it should give information to the afferent arteriole, just a glomerular cells. So what happens? Now, lot of sodium chloride is there in the thick limb of loop of Henle, the region in the macula densa, which is a part of your juxtaglomerular apparatus. Sodium enters the macula densa cells by sodium potassium 2 chloride transporter, and here inside the macula densa, it is getting converted into a signal. So this entry activates the VDACL channels on the basolateral side by unknown mechanisms. We do not know the mechanism. So there is increased formation of ATP and adenosine. So now this ATP and adenosine, which is formed in the macula densa, is released through this VDACL channels into the interstitial system. Okay, it can pass into the interstitial cells, or it can go directly to the smooth muscles of your afferent arteriole. So what happens is, so here it is going. So cell swelling is a very common cause for eliciting this ATP release, and this mechanism may be critical factor for linking sodium chloride transport to ATP egress in the macula densa cells. This you must remember. So that is the cellular swelling which causes the ATPs to be released outside into from the macula densa cells. So now ATP is formed and it is coming out through the channels out of the macula densa cells. So now this information should go to your smooth muscles. So it goes to the smooth muscles by two mechanisms. One is it can directly act on the smooth muscles by adenosine 1 receptor or ATP P2X receptor, and it can activate your smooth muscle cells. Or it can activate P2 receptors on the mesangial cells, and from there through gap junctions it can go to activate your smooth muscle cells. So what is happening in the smooth muscle cells? It increases the intracellular calcium levels, and this causes vasoconstriction of the afferent arteriole. So the GFR goes back to normal. This also inhibits renin release. You must remember this. This also inhibits renin release. This could be due to the electrical coupling of the granular cells to the vascular smooth muscles. So what is happening? So there is an increase in the blood flow, and there is no time for the reabsorption of sodium chloride in the PCT. It comes to the thick ascending limb of your PCT. This sodium chloride concentration is sensed by your macula densa. There is influx of sodium chloride into the macula densa. It causes formation of your ATP. This ATP is poured out into the mesangial, into the interstitium, or into the interstitial space. It goes to the smooth muscles, can act directly on the smooth muscles, or it can act through the mesangial cells, causing smooth muscle contraction through the influx of calcium ions. So there is constriction of the efferent arteriole, which causes your flow to the GFR glomerulus to get reduced, and this causes GFR to come back to normal. This also causes inhibition of your renin release. Okay, this also you must remember, because already there is a high blood flow. Okay, volume is more, BP is more, so you don't need renin here. So here again you will just see ATP mediated tubular glomerular feedback mechanism. Sodium chloride getting influxed into your macula densa cell. ATP is formed to VDACL channels, comes out. It goes through the mesangial cells to P2 receptor and through the gap junctions to the smooth muscles, causing influx of calcium into the smooth muscles, causing contraction. So here also you can see macula densa, sodium chloride getting into the cell, ATPs are formed going out, go and activates your afferent arteriolar smooth muscles, and it causes its contraction. So adenosine 1 receptor and ATP P2X receptor on the smooth muscles. Remember this. Okay. So this is a smooth muscle. ATP is going, acting on the receptors, causing calcium contraction. So you got to remember, I put a word here, a pre-word here. Angiotensin 2 receptors are also present here, and that also activates your calcium. So here, cell simple one, which is very important, but sodium chloride, ADP form, receptors on the smooth muscles causing contraction. It can be directly like this or through the extra glomerular mesangial cells. So I told you a thing like it causes a decrease in the renin secretion, isn't it? So what happens when the macula densa sodium chloride concentration increases? It produces ATP. It goes and activates the Juxta glomerular cells. Okay, this ATP not only acts on the smooth muscles, it goes on act on the Juxta glomerular cells. Okay, that could be an electrical coupling or the coupling like this, and this causes increase in the calcium inside the Juxta glomerular cells, and this causes a renin secretion. Usually we know whenever the intracellular calcium levels are increased, this causes an exocytosis, okay, or the secretion rate increases if there is increase in the intracellular calcium levels. But this is quite different. I want you to guys to have a note on this. When there is increase in the calcium levels inside this renin, inside the juxtaglomerular cells, it causes a decrease in your renin secretion. This is called calcium paradox, okay. So this is called as calcium paradox of renin release. The most important inhibitory mechanism of renin synthesis and release releases elevations. This is because of the elevations in the juxtaglomerular calcium concentration. This is called as calcium paradox. Okay, so again here, what is happening? Whenever the GFR is more, lot of sodium chloride, no absorption sensed by the macula densa cells chemoreceptors, causing an effect on the afferent arteriolar constrictors. It also causes juxtaglomerular cells to reduce renin secretion. So now we go to the next scenario where the GFR decreases. Now we talked when the GFR is more, okay. That is, the blood volume is more, the blood flow is more, GFR is more. Now we will see into what happens when the GFR is decreased. This is your second scenario. So sodium chloride in the tubular fluid falls, reduced uptake in the macula densa cells, less formation of ATP and adenosine, decrease in the intracellular calcium in the smooth muscles, less constriction or vasodilatation of the afferent arteriole, GFR goes back to normal. It also stimulates renin secretion, and also nitric oxide and vasodilator is also produced. So now what is this? So whenever the blood volume is less or the blood pressure is less, renal blood flow is less, and the afferent arteriole is bringing less flow into your glomerulus. So there is less flow, less sodium chloride concentration too. As it goes to the proximal convoluted tubule, it goes slow, and as well as lot of reabsorption, whatever is there is getting reabsorbed in the PCT. So when this fluid is coming to the macula densa or the thick ascending limb, there is less sodium chloride, and less sodium chloride uptake occurs in the macula densa cells. So there is no formation of ATP or less formation of ATP and adenosine, and there is no calcium, decrease in the calcium levels in the smooth muscles, and this causes less constriction. And that would be in vasodilation too. So what happens is blood flow increases and GFR comes back to normal. This also causes stimulate renin secretion. So what is this? So we know the systemic arterial pressure or the blood volume is less. So there is a hypotension or hypovolemia which is present in your extracellular compartment, and hence this should be rectified. So there is a release of renin. Renin, I told you, which is an important regulator of bringing back this blood volume, reduced blood volume or reduced blood pressure back to normal. This is an important system, regulatory system. So you have a renin release here. So how this renin release occurs? We know about the inhibition of renin release, okay, by increase in your intracellular calcium levels of the juxtaglomerular cells. So how this renin release occurs? This is also by the macula densa, isn't it? There is less of sodium chloride there, there is no ATP formed, there is no adenosine formed. But what causes renin release? So here, inside this macula densa, you have this nitrous oxide formed as well as the prostaglandins formed here, particularly prostaglandin E2. So you have prostaglandin I2 as well as E2 as well as nitrous oxide formed, and this causes cyclic AMP to be formed in the Juxta glomerular cells, and that causes decrease in the calcium levels, and you have a secretion of your renin. So you have the sympathetic nervous system here. This picture, you can see the sympathetic nervous system can also activate this Juxta glomerular cells, okay, to secrete your renin, as well as the local hormones, and as well as your angiotensin 2 can cause your secretion of your renin. So most important here, how renin release occurs because of the macula densa stimulation is by the action of prostaglandin E2 and I2 as well as nitrous oxide acting on your Juxta glomerular cells. So macula densa produces the prostaglandin I2 and E2 and nitrous oxide. So these are the ones which mediate paracrine renin release signals in the Juxta glomerular apparatus. So here you have the macula densa, you have the prostaglandin E2, nitrous oxide, and this acts on the cells to secrete your renin. So what is the classic view of renin control in the Juxta glomerular apparatus? It is a rate limiting step of renin angiotensin system, because renin should be formed, and this is a rate limiting step. Reductions in the extracellular fluid volume through 4 major mechanisms occur. So what are the mechanisms? So not only the reduced sodium chloride content of the Juxta glomerular apparatus, as we just briefly looked already, the low renal perfusion pressure, that is local baroreflex mechanisms can do, activation of your sympathetic nervous system can do, reductions in the macula densa salt transport can do, reduced levels of locally acting hormones like angiotensin 2 and acetylbutyric peptide, ultimately increasing circulating levels of interstitial renin levels that lead to enhanced generation of angiotensin. So this also can cause your secretion of renin, this important renin control mechanism. So here you can see the renal nerves can act, the macula densa can act, the renal baroreceptors, sympathetic nervous system can act, angiotensin 2 can act. All these things can cause renin release. So now we are going into the most important thing, the renin angiotensin aldosterone mechanism, or RAAS mechanism in control of BP and blood volume. So what happens? So we know renin is secreted whenever there is a decrease in your GFR. So where decrease in GFR occurs? Whenever there is a decrease in your perfusion pressure. So whenever there is a decrease in the perfusion pressure, so here we will look into the flow chart here. Juxta glomerular cells secrete renin, and this renin causes formation of angiotensin 2. This is a very powerful, potent vasoconstrictor. This causes constriction of the efferent arterioles more than the afferent arterioles. So there is increased capillary hydrostatic pressure, and this causes your GFR to come back to normal. This also causes increase in the aldosterone secretion, increase in ADH secretion from your posterior pituitary. So these one also causes reabsorption of sodium and reabsorption of water, and this maintains your GFR. The angiotensin also causes thirst stimulation. Renal failure sometimes develop on patients with poor renal perfusion who are treated with angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. These are the drugs which can prevent the formation of angiotensin 2. Okay, these are antihypertensive drugs. So what happens? The efferent arteriole brings blood. Efferent arteriole is there. So when it is constricted, the glomerulus, there is increase in the hydrostatic pressure, and so the GFR comes back to normal. This is a mechanism that is occurring in your glomerulus, how the GFR, autoregulation of GFR occurs because of the renin angiotensin mechanism. But more than that, we have this angiotensin 2 secretion, which is causing a systemic alterations in your BP and your blood volume. That we will go. So there is decrease in arterial pressure, increased autonomic stimulation of your juxtaglomerular apparatus, increased renin release in the blood. So renin is going into the blood, okay? It is not present locally in your kidneys. It is not there in the kidneys alone. It is released into the efferent arteriole. It goes into the systemic circulation. So renin is there in the blood. So now it goes to the liver, okay? So the liver is having a protein, that angiotensinogen, okay, and this is a globulin which is getting converted into angiotensin 1, and this is because of your renin. So now this blood goes to your lungs, and in the lungs what we have is angiotensin converting enzyme, and this converts this angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2, which is a very potent vasoconstrictor. So now in the blood you have increasing level of angiotensin 2. So what this does is this stimulates your systemic blood pressure, increasing your blood pressure. This causes a return of the blood pressure to the normal level. Also, this angiotensin 2 causes the adrenal gland, which is present over the kidneys, to secrete your aldosterone. This promotes sodium and water reabsorption. This also causes secretion of antidiuretic hormone or the vasopressin, and this causes the water reabsorption too, through the formation of aquaporins. So you have the return of blood pressure back to normal because the sodium level in the blood increases, water increases, which in turn increases your blood volume, and the blood pressure increases. So when this occurs, it turns off the secretion of renin by the juxtaglomerular cells. So that is a link between your juxtaglomerular apparatus and your blood volume and BP. So locally what happens is you have the arterial pressure decreased, juxtaglomerular pressure decreased, GFR decreased, macula densa produces increased renin, angiotensin 2 is produced, efferent arteriolar constriction occurs, so that the pressure increases and GFR comes back to normal. So here you can see the efferent arterial constriction occurs, hydrostatic pressure increases, and then the BP comes back to normal. So this renin, this action occurs because of the angiotensin 2 which is formed. Okay, so angiotensin 2 effect is there both on the afferent arteriole as well as on the efferent arteriole, but efferent arterial constriction is more than the afferent arteriolar constriction. So again, we will look into the formation of angiotensin 2 or the angiotensins. Angiotensinogen is an alpha-2 globulin synthesized in the liver. Angiotensin is an oligopeptide, and angiotensin is formed from this angiotensinogen 2 by the action of renin. Angiotensin is a dipsogen which causes thirst. So angiotensin 1, you do not have no direct biological activity, so some actions are also there. It exists solely as a precursor to angiotensin 2, but some actions are also there, physiological actions are also there. So how this angiotensin 1 is getting converted to angiotensin 2, and this is because of an enzyme present which is called as angiotensin converting enzyme, which is very important. Please guys note this down. Angiotensin converting enzyme which is present in your lungs, capillaries. So mainly that. You also have chimases, you can remember this, which is present in the heart. So angiotensin 1 is getting converted to angiotensin 2, and this is how the angiotensin 2 was formed. So from angiotensin 2 you have the formation of angiotensin 3 as well as angiotensin 1.7. This is very important, which is a vasodilator. So you have this conversion occurs to angiotensin 1.7 because of ACE2, angiotensin converting enzyme 2, which is also present in your lung capillaries. This is very important because I want you to touch in today's scenario of the COVID-19 infections. This ACE2 is an important receptor by which the virus gets into the lungs and causes the infection. So okay, so what happens here? The angiotensin 2 is formed, angiotensin 2 goes and acts on the receptors and causes the physiological functions as well as pathological functions too. Okay, so when it is overactive, it causes pathological effect too, dangerous, delirious effect too. Okay, so you will remember in this diagram, in this slide, the ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme in the lungs, converts angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. You will remember ACE2, which is converting angiotensin 2 to angiotensin 1.7, which is having a vasodilator effect. So when the angiotensins are formed, not only the vasoconstriction occurs, you have the counter-regulatory mechanisms also parallelly activated, and one of the important one is angiotensin 1.7, which is a vasodilator metabolite, and this is the one which is normally present at the higher levels in the healthy individuals. We also talked about your corona infections. Right now, this is the most worried problems in our world. And you must remember this slide. One more information also I will tell you about ACE, because when you go into the pharmacology of the antihypertensives, then you got to remember the side effects of the antihypertensives. One of the side effects is due to the bradykinin, okay, increased level of bradykinin. Why the bradykinin is more, okay? So before that we will look into what is happening, what is the link between your ACE and your bradykinin. So ACE is the one which causes breakdown of bradykinin, and it is making it into inactive bradykinin. Bradykinin is a very important vasodilator present in the extracellular fluid. Okay, so ACE break down bradykinin. So this is another information I want you to store in your mind for when you read about pharmacological basis of your ACE inhibitors. So ACE2. So now we know about the ACE2. ACE2 also we knew, but we will recapture here. It causes decrease in the BP. It is an anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and it is dominant one in the healthy persons. So angiotensin 1.7 is a vasodilator opposite of RAAS. Angiotensin 2 is the precursor to the formation of angiotensin 2 because of the action of ACE2 on angiotensin 2. So this is a mechanism of interaction between COVID-19 and ACE inhibitors. These functions as a receptor for the uptake of the virus into the lung epithelial cells. Okay, so again, angiotensin 1.7, this is because of the formation of angiotensin 2 on the angiotensin, because of the ACE2 on the angiotensin 2, okay. So angiotensin 2, now we are coming to the angiotensin 2, how do they act as they go and act on the receptors. The actions of the angiotensin 2 receptor results depending upon the action on the angiotensin 2 receptors. So it has two receptors, angiotensin 1 and angiotensin 2. Most of the effect of the angiotensin 2 is exerted to the angiotensin 1 receptor. So this causes vasoconstriction, cell growth in the heart, and that is cardiac modulation, and the arteries, secretion of aldosterone causes, and peripheral sympathetic activity is also increased. If it acts on angiotensin 2, okay, it causes vasodilatation and anti-proliferative action, and apoptosis is a function of when it acts. It's its function when it acts on receptor 2. So here you can see angiotensin 1. It acts on the receptor, causing vasodilatation, anti-proliferative, anti-growth, anti-modulating diuresis, natriuresis. Angiotensin 2 acts on the angiotensin 1, which is a very important and predominant one. Okay, this causes vasoconstriction, proliferation, hypertrophy, aldosterone release, and oxidative stress, and barrel reflex mechanism. Angiotensin 2 acts on the vasodilating mechanism. Angiotensin 3 and 4, they have, most importantly, 4 on the CNS, learning, memory, long-term potentiation, and glucose uptake. So this vasoconstrictor effect of the angiotensin 1, you have the counter-regulatory mechanisms of vasodilatation here by its another set of receptors by AT2, and you also have the angiotensin 1.7, which also causes a counter-regulatory mechanism. So this is important and you got to remember this. So functions of angiotensin 2, where it is very important because it is very important vasoconstrictor. So during a physiological mechanism, when it is increased, it causes vasoconstriction, bringing back the BP back to normal. But in the pathological conditions, the overactivity of these molecules causes hypertension. So it helps to re-establish fluid balance in the normal BP by blood vessel constriction. It increased renal and gastrointestinal salt and water reabsorption occurs because of this. It causes aldosterone production and secretion and ADH production and secretion, which causes increase in your water reabsorption from the tubules as well as your sodium chloride reabsorption from the tubules. What is the function of angiotensin II specifically on the cardiovascular system? It increases on the heart the ionotrophy, chronotrophy mechanism, norepinephrine release, catecholamine sensitivity is increased, cardiac remodeling occurs, and vasoconstriction occurs through AT1 receptors on the peripheral vessels. Conversely, AT2 receptors impair cardiac remodeling. So here you can see the actions of angiotensin II: increased sympathetic activity, tubular reabsorption of sodium chloride and water, causes aldosterone secretion, increases the aldosterone secretion, causes vasoconstriction, acts on the pituitary gland to produce ADH, increases water reabsorption to the formation of your aquaporins. But how this angiotensin II was formed? From the kidneys, from the Juxta glomerular apparatus, okay, from the Juxta glomerular cells, getting information from the macrodensa, causing the secretion of the renin, and this causes the formation of this angiotensin II. So what is its function in the kidney? It increases GFR, increases mesangial cell contraction, decreases filtration. This is in opposition, okay? Decreases medullary blood flow, increases tubular sodium reabsorption. So this is a paracrine function of the angiotensin II. So now we just look into overall systemic functions we talked, but what exactly happens in the kidney? So here you have the vasoconstriction of the efferent arteriole. That is sodium reabsorption, water reabsorption. That is what I want you to remember. And here you have vasodilator effect of the angiotensin II. This I want you to stress here. So if it is causing constriction like this, okay, the kidneys will not receive the blood flow and it might cause a renal failure, isn't it? The kidney ischemia of the kidney cells, nephrons will occur. But this is not happening because it causes a vasodilator effect too. It protects the regional and the total blood flow of the kidneys because of its action on the other receptors. So it has a dual role. So role of angiotensin receptors in modulating kidney blood flow. So here I told you it causes the regional maintenance of the regional blood flow too. So when it acts on the AT2 receptors, it causes nitrous oxide formed and cyclic GMP formed. This causes vasodilatation and natriuresis. So the overall action, there is an interaction or the balance between these two actions, and it increases the GFR2 as well as it causes your blood flow to the specific regions, regional blood flow of the kidneys also not get disturbed or affected. And this is a balancing action of angiotensin II on the kidneys. So AT1 on the systemic level, AT1 increase in the aldosterone secretion, vasoconstriction, natriuresis, blood pressure regulation. AT2 increase in the bradykinin, increase nitric oxide, increase cyclic AMP, vasodilation and natriuresis. So it causes your decrease in your blood pressure. So AT1 receptor predominates and it causes vasoconstriction in your kidneys. So we will have briefly some idea about angiotensin 3 and 4. 40% of the pressor activity of angiotensin 2, pressor activity is by angiotensin 3. 100% of aldosterone producing activity is by this and increases mean arterial pressure. Angiotensin 4 is an hexapeptide like angiotensin 3 and it has a lesser activity and wide range of activities in the CNS. So we knew functions of angiotensin 1, angiotensin 2, angiotensin 3, aldosterone secretion, vasoconstriction, angiotensin 4 is very important for the CNS activities. So then it is getting converted into an inactive metabolite and it is getting excreted out. So here we have an impact on the antihypertensives. Here I wanted to finish off this session, this video with this idea. So we know thus renin-angiotensin system is activated whenever there is some hypertension or hypovolemia, increasing the systemic blood pressure. But if there is an overactivity of this renin-angiotensin system, and what happens is you encounter with hypertension, which is the most common systemic illness, which is present all over, causing so many adverse effects, acting on your heart and your brain, causing stroke and myocardial infarction and so on, as well as renal failure too. So what we got to need is antihypertensives, which can bring back this hypertension back to normal, and there are the drugs which can block this RAAS activity. So you can have your DRI, that is direct renin inhibitor, which can block the secretion on formation of renin, which is a rate limiting step. Second one, you can have this ACE inhibitors, which can inhibit this conversion of angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2, so that angiotensin 2 is not formed. 3 is you can have the ARRBS, or the angiotensin receptor blockers, so that angiotensin 2 does not go and act on the angiotensin receptor, particularly AT1 receptor blocker, because this is the predominant one which causes vasoconstriction. It can also cause, we can also use an aldosterone inhibitor like spironolactone, which can cause the action of aldosterone, and it can decrease the sodium and water reabsorption, so that the BP cannot be raised more, and it can put back the BP under control. So these are drugs, antihypertensive drugs, and its connection with your RAAS. So some of the drugs, the direct renin inhibitor is aliskirenin, angiotensin converting enzyme. ACE inhibitors are the prils, okay, the captopril, enalapril, lisinopril, ramipril. Angiotensin 2 receptor blockers, or ARBs, are the sartans, and your aldosterone antagonist are the spironolactone and eplerenone. Okay, so this can bring back to your BP, if it is high, back to normal. So thanks for the patient listening. We will go into now we already know about your renin-angiotensin system and RAAS mechanisms, how it causes BP. We will briefly look into the ARBs and ACE inhibitors in the next video. Thank you.